you know, Millie and Elliot and Josh have just been so great with pushing this mental health awareness. And my background has been psychology. So I taught mindfulness meditation in the NHS many years ago. I've been teaching in various guises for almost 20 years now, and that's mindfulness, meditation, yoga, all sorts of things. 20 years, I know I don't look old enough, right? But yeah, nearly 20 years now. And so I set up mymindfulguru.com, and over a year ago now, reached out to Vivo Life and said, hey, do you guys, you know, are you guys interested in meditation? And Josh was already on this path, and it was just so great to team up with you guys and for you to come back and bring me in again with this partnership. Is just wonderful. So thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said before, I'm going to try and make this fun and interesting, and it's not going to be dry at all. So this is recording in progress. Things in the ears, loud noises. This is a 3-part series. So we've got the 15th and the 22nd as well. And what I'm going to do is try and build a knowledge base for you guys, not just around mindfulness, but to give you a really great meditation understanding and practice as a whole. So I'm going to talk for a bit, and by all means, unmute your mic at any stage, interrupt me if you want to ask a question, if something's not quite clear. I can see a question coming in on the side already. That's great. And I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then at the end, we can do more questions. And then I'm going to go through a guided practice with you guys. If it looks like I'm not looking at you, it's because I've got my camera's down here, but the screen's up here. So this is where I can see all you guys. I'm not staring away. So the idea of these 3 sessions is, the whole concept is, how do we use the mind as a wonderful tool, and the wonderful tool that it is, rather than allowing the mind to use us. Now, you all probably know people who have struggled with mental health problems, you know, your anxieties, your depressions, you know, fear of this, worries about that. We all know somebody. The statistics are clear. Mental health is a problem that is really, especially in this part of the world, only getting worse. It's not getting better. And from what I have seen, and this is from working in the NHS for non-UK people, that's the National Health Service, there is just something missing that we're not taught in school, and we're not taught by our parents, and culturally, it's just completely not available to us to understand, particularly in the West. Different parts of the world have different access to this knowledge. And this knowledge is that there are 3 aspects to our being, right? We're not just a body and a mind. Since the 1600s, we had René Descartes, and don't worry, this is not going to be a history lesson, but René Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. And since then, there's been this massive onus on this idea that your thinking mind is what you are. Your thoughts are the very essence of your being. And everyone bought that and believed it and subscribed to it since then, since René said that. And from what I can see, that's done a lot of damage, because by believing that our thinking is what makes us what we are, we get ourselves into a right model, because we become identified with the mind. We believe we're the mind, okay? But there's not just the mind and the body. We've all got a body, and we've all got a mind, this invisible space where we can hear thoughts. And it's so wonderful and magical. I could even listen to a Michael Jackson record right now and hear his actual voice in this completely separate dimension that is available only to me. I mean, that's remarkable? And nobody really talks about it. And even in psychology and psychiatry, we talk about interventions and trying to control our mind. But the thing is, it doesn't really need to be controlled. We just need to be liberated from it and realize that we are not it. So when I say to people, meditation is what allows you to discover what you are. And you're not the body, you're not the mind. What are you? You're the consciousness, the awareness, the spirit, the soul, whatever you want to call it. You're the bit that can observe the thoughts and observe the body. If I pinch my body, I can be aware of it. If I have a thought, I can be aware of it. But do I disappear in each moment that I'm not thinking? Or do I disappear in each moment that I'm not aware of the body? No, of course not. You could argue that you're more present in those moments, the gaps between thoughts, than in any moment of your life, right? So we can easily prove to ourselves that the mind is a dimension, an invisible dimension. And that kind of, it's very important that we understand that the mind being an invisible dimension is intangible, but we all agree it exists because we all have thoughts. Because what I'm going to convince you is that there's something deeper than that, which is also invisible and it's also intangible. But that deeper essence that we're going to call awareness or consciousness is what we are. And I don't want you to believe anything I say today. I call this session the why without the try. The why without trying, because I want you to know why we should meditate every day. We should participate in meditation. But when we know why, we mustn't try to get anywhere. If you watched the first YouTube video that I did for Vivo Life that went live on their YouTube page, I talked about this idea that we are in meditation accessing a state of being and not doing, acceptance and not rejecting. So if we, in meditation, we have this idea that meditation is the absence of thoughts, the empty mind, the Karate Kid ideology, that doesn't work. That's not what meditation is. Meditation is not the absence of thoughts. It's the acceptance of everything that you experience, including your thoughts. And when we accept things exactly as they are, we don't cause harm to ourselves. Because if I have an underlying assumption that something should be happening, but it's happening anyway, I'm creating a want and a desire and a should, which cannot be fulfilled. In any way cannot be fulfilled. If I've got a headache and I don't want a headache, headache hurts. It's innately and intrinsically a painful thing, objectively. But we add suffering with the mind, and we do this in our life. If I then have thoughts, this shouldn't be happening. This has been going on for too long. It should have gone by now. If I have those thoughts, I'm sprinkling suffering on top of something which is already innately and intrinsically difficult. So I'm going to draw a diagram because I've been talking for some time, and I'm going to share my screen now because this really helped me. Host disabled. Oh, Josh, can I share my screen by any chance? I think you might have to enable it for me because what I would like to do is draw a diagram if possible.
Yeah, let me. You're asking the technophobe, mind you, but let's have a look. Meeting settings.
If we can't do it, that's fine, and I will gesticulate instead and see if I can conjure up some mental images.
Wait, you now have the power.
I've got the power. Right, here we go. Ah, perfect. Thank you, sir. I'm going to bring up, Zoom's got this whiteboard feature. Now, nod if you can see my whiteboard. Can people see it? Yeah, big white screen. Right. So this, if we take away one thing from today, this helped me massively. And you're going to see my artistic prowess now. You're going to be impressed. Trust me. Look at this. So this is a little guy. This is a guy or girl. This is one of those. He's one arm longer than the other, just like me. And here's our guy, right? And he has a body. So this is like the fundamentals of understanding. So he's got the body and he's also got the mind. And this is, of course, where our thoughts happen, body and mind. And everyone agrees on this. Now, when I understand things by pictorially, it really helps me. And when I'm trying to explain what consciousness is, helps to have great artwork, doesn't it? It's easier if we can have a mental image of what that might be like. And remember, I don't want you to believe anything I say. We're gonna put this into practice. So don't take my word for this. Beyond the body and the mind, this third aspect is like a stage. And this stage I call awareness or consciousness. We can call it whatever we want. And the reason I like to describe it as a stage is because it holds everything that forms our experience. So we all agree, yeah, I've got a body, I'm in this one, you're in that one, who knows how I got into this one, who knows how you got into that one. And we all have a mind. That's where I play Michael Jackson songs sometimes. That's where that's where thoughts take place. And without getting into too much detail, the mind has wonderful, useful components, right? We've got memory. So we don't want to not have thoughts, because if we don't have memory, it's like, well, that one time I poked that crocodile, probably won't do that again. So now the mind is very important because I've got the memory system. And then of course I can plan and think about the future. So I've got this prospective system, which we could call planning, or the future system, or the imagination system. And in that system, I can plan a trip or design something, and I'm creating something which isn't here where we are now. So these systems are great, but generally what happens is we tend to suffer this thing here, because we think we are it. We think we are the mind. And so every thought that comes up, we just believe it to be a veridical representation of what's going on. But if we realize that there's 8-point-something billion people on the planet, and every single one of those 8-point-something billion people on the planet right now have a different mind with different thoughts. So your thoughts are completely unique to you. But unfortunately, if we are not more identified as our deeper aware self, what happens is the mind interposes itself between us and reality. This is why we have conflict, argument, jealousy, greed. All of the ego stuff comes from our mind. All of the competition comes from our mind. So I'm sitting here and I'm telling you that you're not the mind, and I'm telling you you're not the body. And you might say, well, we'll prove it. How are you? How is that? How so? What's the point of me meditating? It's a big time commitment. Well, so if I am looking at a sunset, for example, I'm looking at the sun, and if I'm fully experiencing the sun as it is through observation, as it presents in this moment, you could say that I am aware. What is happening is the sun is completely mirrored perfectly and veridically in the mind. The mind is where stuff comes in, and it's not, because I'm aware, nothing is augmented, nothing is changed. I am just experiencing the sunset. The second I start saying, isn't that beautiful, darling? And look at those colors. And the second I start creating judgments, opinions, and subjective thoughts about it, then I am not paying attention to the sun anymore, the sun setting, right? I am now thinking about the sunset, and I'm inside here. This is no longer represented in here as it is in reality. And that's a very sad thing. Because if sunset is one thing, but if we do that, if we're identified with the mind throughout our whole life, what happens is, and stop me if any of this doesn't make sense, what happens is we have our culture, we have society, we have education, and what they do is they just pop little thoughts in, just like this. As time goes by, they just click thoughts about who you are, what you are. You know, I'm an Englishman, I'm a lawyer, I'm a something, or, you know, I'm a shy person, I'm an extrovert. Then all of a sudden, the bandwidth through which we view our entire lives goes from being pure awareness of what's there to this really narrow little box that we fit ourselves into. Now, when I look at a sunset, I look at a sunset as a lawyer, or I'm a this, and maybe it changes the way I perceive it, right? Everything that we think we are, that we've been told is true, a thought that we've been given, is not helpful. Through meditation, we have to understand that we are unlearning everything that we've ever been told in our lives. People say, you're that one, and you're this, you're that, you're your thoughts. You know, I don't think I'm the hand just because I'm experiencing a handshake in this moment. So why do we think we're the mind just because we experience a thought in this moment? It doesn't, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen. It doesn't make sense let's stop share. It doesn't make sense for us to believe that we're these things that are so transient, right? So if I meet someone who I've not seen for such a long time at the airport, and I run and I give them a big hug, in that moment where I'm reconnecting with that person, I'm not having a thought about it. I am just purely immersed in that experience. And I'm more alive then than whenever I'm having whatever thought I'm having about what I'm having for dinner, what I did yesterday, what I might do tomorrow. So we still exist, contrary to what René Descartes might say. We still exist even though we're not thinking and we're not in the mind. We're not in that invisible dimension. We're not necessarily paying attention to the body and the internal body dimension. There is something bigger and something beyond. And this is what all of the ancient cultures and traditions have talked about. The consciousness, the spirit, the soul, the awareness, the attention, all of these things is what we are harnessing through our meditation. So why would you do it? It's a big time commitment. What does it really bring? And I always go back to how busy I got during the COVID thing. Not talk in any great detail about what happened with COVID, but it made a lot of people really upset. Now, lots of friends and people I really love have said to me, "Oh, Christian, the meditation stuff's great, man. It's, I love that you do that, but I don't need it. It's not for me. It's just not important. I'm fine. I feel fine most of the time. Yeah, you get sad and things from time to time, or worry about this, that, and the other, and I'm okay with that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. This is either you want to learn this or you don't. But then we have a major event happened, and all of a sudden the fine turned into worry, turned into feeling disconcerted, disillusioned, panicky. A lot of people were kind of freaked out. I can't leave the house. What am I going to do? And this is the problem. And I say, if you don't have some form of spiritual consciousness practice, you're basically living in a tent. Here's my metaphor. And a tent is great in the summer when the weather's good and it's not windy and rainy. But eventually the winter will come. The winter comes from everyone. Maybe you get divorced. Maybe it's a bereavement. Maybe you lose your job and that was your identity. Or maybe you lose a limb. Who knows? But we can all agree, I'm sure, that life has immense suffering, which can be just around the corner. Now, that suffering is very, very difficult without the deeper consciousness, which allows you to abstain from adding psychological and mental suffering on top. So instead of being in a tent and the storm comes and you get smashed, I don't need the meditation. I don't need that serenity and deeper calmness that comes from the meditative state. You get smashed, and COVID smashed a lot of tents. A lot of people who felt like, I'm okay. All of a sudden, oh gosh, I'm having worrying thoughts, or I'm struggling to fall asleep because of thinking, or I'm finding I'm getting lost in thoughts. And in the next session, I'll talk about two different types of thoughts that we have, passive and active thoughts. I'm going to go into detail about why sometimes thoughts just happen to you, and what we can do about that. So the meditation is what gives us our foundation. It gives us this foundation so that, like John Kabat-Zinn says, we no longer get smashed by the waves, we learn how to surf, right? The waves being like all of the bad, difficult, full catastrophe of stuff that happens in life, right? The car crash or whatever it is. Now we learn how to surf. So we don't get destroyed by the things that happen to us in our life. Yeah, things are still very, very challenging. And this is not about not being emotional, having real emotion. It's about not adding suffering on top of things that are already challenging. So you can be the one who is aware, conscious, cognizant, present, who plans the funeral and who is functional and who is not a blubbering wreck. And that is a very, very powerful thing in and of itself, to be able to possess immense calmness in any situation. And you can't achieve that by meditating when things get difficult. We have to begin a practice during the calm times when things are ostensibly fine. But of course, things are never fine, because life will, the longer you live, the more you realize life is going to do stuff that you didn't ask for, and maybe you didn't want. And so this is what meditation is, the thing that gives us the poise and the equanimity during those times. So I like the metaphor of, you might have heard this before, it's in the Tibetan Book of the Living and Dead, the jar of sand and water. And to me, I meet so many people and say, I don't meditate. And I say, oh, I know, we know. It's the jar of water with sand is shaken up in a lot of people, and it doesn't take much. Someone pinches your parking space in Tesco's, or something seemingly quite trivial happens, and I'm like really annoyed, or I'm really stressed now, this thing didn't go my way. And of course, there's no clarity. You shake the jar of sand, and if you're constantly moving and constantly doing and procuring and trying to achieve and further yourself, if we don't stop and stay still, then there will be thoughts and all sorts of stuff going around constantly all the time. And that's going to be very, very stressful and very, very difficult. But meditation is the process of sitting the jar down and being still. And when we become still, the sand and the sediment settles to the bottom of the jar. And then what happens is the jar becomes clear and we can see clearly. And now I get to experience the sunset without thoughts, but I also get to experience, my wife, my daughter, my family, my friends. I finally get to see everyone exactly as they are, without all the particles interposed between my perception and what's really out there. And so that is what's crucial, just being still for long enough for things to calm and things to be still. So just like it's a necessity to eat food to nourish the body, since 2020, since the world is a very different place, feels like meditation is no longer a luxury, but it's a necessity. It is a necessity to have control of one's inner conscious domain, because of course the news, the media, the world, the culture, the everything can very much knock this if we don't have a hold of this deeper dimension. Is this ringing bells? Is this new to people? And at this point, I always like to say, does anybody have a question? By all means, fire a question and unmute the mic if you have a question before I move on. And I will just answer this quick question that I see on the side here. What difference did you feel or notice in your life pre and post meditation? Well, so interestingly, I used to be a musician, and I was very, very identified with the ego. That's how, from what I can tell, everyone is born. And I used to be stressed. I used to be fragile psychologically, in the sense that if things didn't go my way, I was very reactive. Things would bother me. This is going back to kind of teenage years and very early 20s. Without the practice, I feel like what happens is you react to life instead of consciously acting. So the stuff you do isn't conscious. I see this in everything from what people eat. Like I say this all the time, I'm in the supermarket and people are just grabbing this off the shelf because I like the advert. That was a thought put there by an advertising company who makes money off this product, puts it straight in the bag. It's full of non-sustainable palm oil and refined sugars and e-numbers. Now, you can do that. That is a way of doing things, but you're not auditing reality effectively. So once you become aware and identify with your deeper self, then all of a sudden you are conscious, and it's like, well, what are the ramifications? If I do X, Y, Z, what are the ramifications? Can it harm anyone? Because one of the things that goes straight out the window is you certainly don't feel like harming anyone anymore. All of a sudden, compassion is the greatest priority. Love is the greatest priority. Fun and frivolity and joyfulness are exuded, and there's a certain calm peacefulness that comes with it. of course, these are side effects, but they're quite good side effects, I'm sure you'd agree, of just sitting and being still for a small part of the day. So I started becoming more conscious. I'm more conscious about the food that I eat, stuff that I put in the body, the words that I speak, because the words are spells. That's why we call it spelling. I understand about the laws of attraction and manifestation. All of the parts of my life started slotting together so gracefully and beautifully. And life became, for me, less of a struggle. So hopefully that answers your question. I was very, very mentally fragile before, and then not so much with the meditation. So when I say don't believe me, I say go away, try the practices, and if it doesn't work for you, then don't do it. You know, and if it has to be, this is not about belief and having faith in something that isn't your experience. This is about sitting, trying it, and you will, I have no doubt, have a change in the depth of your consciousness with a commitment. If you are devoted to it every day, you will feel that change. And with that change comes so many wonderful things. Someone said, is Elizabeth, this all reminds me of the mantra, I am not the body, I'm not the mind, I am not the emotion. Question is, what are we then? Well, hopefully that's all true. And hopefully I answered that question by saying we are the conscious awareness which can observe thoughts and observe the body and observe everything. We are the empty space. We are the stage on which it all plays out. And I'm going to, over the course of these 3 sessions, today on the 15th and the 22nd, I'm going to talk about how we access that. And it's not just through mindfulness. And, you know, in clinical terms, we only talk mindfulness, but there's something beyond that. That object focus, that samadhi, that one-pointedness. There's something really cool and bigger than that I want to share with you guys, that expands from attention into awareness. And I'm going to differentiate attention from awareness in our vernacular so we understand. So we are, because we know we can observe a thought when it comes, like, oh, there's a thought about my mum. Okay, did I think that up, or did that happen in the absence of my consciousness? This is what we ask ourselves. Here's another thought. Now I can watch thoughts and label them and laugh at them and realize that they may or may not be about reality, and maybe I didn't ask for them. Well, then, if we can do that, if we can observe thoughts, then how are we the mind? How are we the thoughts? Of course, we're not, because I can observe this cup of tea. So I know I'm not it, because I can observe it. And if I can observe something which is seemingly exogenous, then I'm not it. So thoughts are like the strangers that come and go in the street. And of course, I can pay attention and feel the body. But of course, we know we're not the body, because every night we fall asleep, we're not in the body. The essence that we are goes away completely out of the body and comes back. And in the morning, sometimes you've had a dream and you say, oh, I had this really vivid dream. It was you who had the dream, because you brought it back into the body. It's the same, the many other ways of leaving the body. Dreaming is just one that we've all done. And so if your consciousness was there in the dream, and I don't want to get too much into dreams, then we're not the body. And of course, your consciousness is still there. You're still, the essence of you is still there, even in the gaps between the thoughts. Then we're not the mind and we're not the thoughts. The mind is a tool that we are given. The body is a tool that we're given to interact with 3-dimensional space in this dimension. And of course, thoughts are useful. And this is not about pay attention, be present, pay attention, be present, only always present. Because the mind's a wonderful tool. And like I said, we need to avoid crocodiles. And remember, those guys can be snappy. Or that person that harmed us, you know, we maybe don't go right back around their house. So the mind is useful for those things. It helps us operate in this world in which we find ourselves. So hopefully, Elizabeth, that answers your question. We are the deeper observer of these hidden dimensions. And there are more dimensions as well. I'm just going to admit someone. So hopefully that explains that for you. I'm aware that we've got 20 minutes left. By all means, type more questions on the side here. That's all right, Elizabeth, and you're very welcome. So the idea is that we have balance, right? So if you read many spiritual books and spiritual teachers will say, I am always fully present in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. Now, there are times when we need to use the mind, like we've spoken about, but we learn to use it consciously. So we are creating thoughts of our own volition, and we use the mind as a tool to achieve what we want to do. And instead of allowing it to be the master, we make it the servant, just like the body's the servant. So when I want to pick this tea up and have a sip like this, the body's not like this, right? I'm telling it what to do consciously of my own decision, of my own volition, right? And a good way to become more conscious is to be aware of maybe you get an itch, right? Are you scratching it before you're even aware? So when meditation, like Ram Dass would explain, meditation is watching the itch without scratching it, okay? An itch comes up, well, am I already scratching it before I made the decision to scratch it? So this is a good way of framing, are we unconsciously and subconsciously reacting to the world, or are we consciously engaging with the world and interacting with it in the way that we choose to interact with it? That is really, really important. We want to be the actor that acts in this role and does stuff consciously. We don't want to be unconscious, because then we'll eat the wrong foods, we'll say the wrong things, we'll do the wrong things. And of course, there is karmic cycles at play. Karma is just means action. So whatever I do, that's what I get. Whatever I do, that's what happens. It's not about cause and effect. It's just karma just means action. That's it. So if I make the conscious decision to eat healthy, I like to eat a lot of fruit, a lot of good veggies, and I drink water, and I like to look after the body. That's a conscious decision. The karma is that I feel very healthy and have lots of energy. So it is literally just a conscious action which creates your own realm. I just see another question coming in here. What is your best advice for someone that's new to meditation? I only have one piece of advice, just one, and it's just that you do it consistently, day after day after day, for absolutely no reason. For no reason, just do it. Just sit. Make a decision to do this thing. And if nothing happens in a month, and you say to myself, this isn't worth committing to long term, then you can walk away, and you've not really lost anything, save from sitting quietly and calmly for half an hour a day, or 10 minutes a day, or whatever you decide is good for you. So all you need to do with meditation is do it. You cannot do it wrong. There's no wrong meditation. Every meditation that you sit in will be different. The mind will do more stuff, and it's fine. The monkey mind might be there doing its thing, and you accept that guy, because we have been wronged quite a lot by our culture and society, and the way we have been taught that we're not particularly powerful, but we're really powerful. We are really, really powerful, and we don't need to believe everything we think. So I would say, don't believe everything you think. Some people have negative automatic thoughts, and they've been set up from the past, set up from childhood, set up from school. The thoughts are not real. And the more we observe them and let them come and go without judging them, which is the mindful aspect. And we're not going to stay in mindfulness. I'm going to take us further over these three sessions. But the mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, non-judgmentally, to the present moment. So when we have our meditation, that's what we'll be doing. We're paying attention to the present, and we're going to use an object. We're going to use an anchor. It's going to be breath. It's going to be point in the body, something like this. It's on purpose. That's the conscious bit. That's the conscious bit of meditation. If we're doing it on purpose, we've decided to do it. Who decided? You decided, not the mind, not the body, not your neighbors. You decided to meditate. The conscious awareness deep within you, that loving consciousness that cares about you and cares about everyone, cares about animals, cares about humans, cares about the planet, that decided to do it. It's of your volition. And in the present moment, because the present moment is the only thing we ever had. I've never been in tomorrow. Every time tomorrow comes, it's always now. And yesterday was also now when it was there. There's yesterday and tomorrow, metaphysical constructs which don't really exist. We live in a perpetual state of now, moment. So in our meditation, we are only interested in the present, in the now. And by doing that, we deepen this conscious state over time, and we extend the gaps between thoughts by accepting, and not being judgmental. We're all everyone's judgmental, generally speaking. It's just part of the program. You're welcome. Yeah, no problem. Is that a hand up, Josie, to ask a question? I see there's a little hand.
Yeah, I'm not so well. So what you were saying before, do you sort of like imagine your illness, or how's that work?
Sure. So it depends. So mindfulness is used in pain. I mean, I was with a pain clinic in the Channel Islands for a while. And mindfulness is used for chronic pain, right? Pain that you've had for over 6 months becomes chronic. And acceptance is a huge part of not adding additional suffering to pain that you may have. But this extends to any illness or any circumstance that you might find yourself in. So whether it's a difficult life situation or an illness or whatever it is, what we find is the things that we can't change right now in this moment, if we accept them, they become easier. They become a lot easier. What we have a proclivity to do as humans is say this should game. We have an underlying assumption that bad things and difficult things shouldn't be happening to us. But of course they should, and it's very important that they do, because we do not grow without them. It's very important that bad things happen. So when we accept, Eckhart Tolle said it really nicely. He said, accept this moment as though you chose it. Accept what's happening now as though you chose it. You decided that it was going to happen. And understand that we often have an underlying assumption of should and shouldn't. And notice if you're doing that. And once we accept it, and I do this if I get a headache, or I do this, a tire blows out on the car. I had a motorhome and it broke down a lot. And it's like, okay, well, here we are. This is what's happening right now. So I'm okay with it. And I forget what spiritual teacher famously said. I think it was Maharishi. When they said to him, they were like, you haven't had an easy life, but you always seem very calm and at ease in yourself and with things. And they said, and this was before he died, and they said, what's your secret? And he said, I just don't mind. I just don't mind. He decided, no matter what happens, not to mind, not to be bothered by it. And that is a decision. Does that make sense, Josie?
Yeah, sort of.
It's a weird concept, because we're programmed to want to make things better and change things. And unfortunately, we can't change everything. And the things that we can't change, we only improve by accepting them. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't then improve them. Like, for example, if I fall in a muddy ditch, right, and I accept it, I still get out the ditch. I don't stay in the ditch. I accept, I go, I've fallen in a ditch and I'm covered in mud. I don't start going, these bad things always happen to me, and these trousers are ruined now. And you know people like that. Everyone knows people like that. It doesn't look like much fun. So I realized it's not much fun. This is the difference. This is the difference between me and people who are still, the thought might still come up, and there's one of those thoughts. That's not going to really improve the current situation in this ditch. If I start saying that this is bad, well, why is it bad? Because maybe when I fell in that ditch, it made it the amount of time that it takes me to get to my destination that little bit longer. And then I met that person that I needed to meet. I was going to get there too early. I fell in the ditch and accepted it. And now when I get there, Now I've met that person. Great. I needed to meet this person. Now this person's in my life for the rest of my life. They're the most important person. But me falling in that ditch, in that moment, I would have said, this is such a bad thing. This is terrible. But was it a bad thing? No, it wasn't a bad thing. The whole game, the whole story, the whole play has not played out yet. It hasn't finished yet. So how can you say this is bad? How do you know this is bad? We don't know.
Right. Well, it wasn't bad. I had a great achievement. I did Everest Base Camp, but I got the altitude cough and chest and bleeding. It's been 3 weeks now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
so,
yeah. Congratulations. What a great achievement. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so why won't this go away? I'm chuffed about it.
Well, it's like a medal. It's like a physiological medal of your achievement. Yeah, you know, with illnesses come and go. Everything comes and goes. Good meditations come and go. Bad meditations come and go. You know, it's hard today. It's easy tomorrow. You know, everything comes and goes. And being conscious is accepting the transient nature of absolutely everything, including ourselves. Right? We're a pop-up, like everything. And so illnesses are transient. Of course, it won't be here forever. It won't be here forever. And so when we sit and we become silent and we become still, any thoughts that we have, which are adding a difficulty to something like an illness, we can objectively look at them. We can just look at those thoughts objectively, and without judgment, let them come and let them go, let them come and let them go. And that process of sitting still, instead of trying to distract ourselves, you know, people give that advice all the time. Oh, maybe we should get doing this and that. It would be better if you didn't. It would be better if you were still. It would be better if we accepted everything as it is. And then we have this knowing of it'll go. Like everything, like day, like night, like ourselves. Nothing is forever.
Right. Right, yeah.
And the meditation will, of course, deepen that understanding. It brings about lots of deliveries through meditation of understanding. But when we speak about these things, it also helps when we sit in the meditation. It's like, okay, now I know I'm going to let things come and go. I'm not going to go with this thought and this thought and this thought about I shouldn't still be sick and it should have gone by now. Once we accept it, we find things tend to go away quicker and with more efficacy as well.
Right. Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Right. Turn that mic off. That cough, my word.
I know, sorry.
Nice to speak to you, Josie. Let's have a look. Questions coming in. I'm aware that we've got about 10 minutes. I am known for running over. Is it fair to say that meditation helps you react to situations, good or bad, better? I would assert that there's no such thing as a good or bad situation. Nothing is good or bad. We haven't got to the end, like falling in the ditch. Like I said, like maybe falling in the ditch meant that it made your journey that bit longer, so that you bumped into that person that you needed to bump into at the coffee shop, that special person, or it stopped you from getting hit by a bus. Labeling things as good or bad is the judgmental aspect of the human ego. And once we understand that labeling stuff, and Josh knows we have a great Zen koan. Zen Buddhism has koans, which are very short stories which elucidate these concepts quite well. Because of brevity, I won't go into it. Maybe next week, if you guys are here and you remind me. I would say there's nothing is good or bad. Illness, you know, and nothing is good. You know, you might win the lottery, but then, you know, you see people win the lottery and then they get some crazy gambling addiction or drug addiction, and it wasn't a good thing after all. But was it a bad thing? Well, maybe not, because maybe that led to It's all just an intricate network of stuff happening. That's it, just stuff. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just things. Like when we look at a tree, and you zoom in on the tree and we've got all these little twigs and branches, you're like, what the hell is going on? It just seems like chaos. But when you zoom out, it's like an oval, the outside shape, particularly in autumn before it has the leaves. You're like, wow, kind of makes sense when I zoom out. Meditation is the same thing. Everything makes sense because we zoom out and see everything exactly as it is, without this idea of wanting to change it. Hopefully that answers your question. terminal illness I'll not get into with sort of a short time left, but if anyone wants to talk about anything, drop me an email, mymindfulguru@mail.com, or go on the website mymindfulguru.com. Of course, I teach one-to-one, I teach groups and businesses and things, so if you do want to get in touch, do give me a shout. Maybe anyone really wants to join this. Josh can answer one of those. It's about inviting someone to the course. So I won't do any more questions now, but by all means, drop me an email or go to the website. There's a contact form on the website, mymindfulguru.com, and you can get in contact through there. Whether it's about sessions or questions or any of that stuff, let me know. So what I wanted to do is, for people who are like really new to meditation here, I just wanted to give a quick overview so that you can go away and have a practice to participate in, and to jump from our autopilot mode into our being mode, from our reactive mode into our conscious mode. How do we do that? One of my favorite ways, and it's in some of the YouTube videos on the Vivo Life YouTube channel, one of my favorite ways, and if you look at yoga, if you look at Kundalini yoga and chakra energy systems and all that, they usually start with this. There is a very powerful point in the body, and I'm not asking you to believe me, of course, it's not about belief. There is a point here, and this point changed my life, and I'd love for it to change your life if you haven't discovered it yet either. And when we become aware of this point in our meditation, eventually we will be able to feel movement of energy or ether, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it is, but it is literally tangible and perceptible. So for a meditation that I want to give you, and I'm going to explain it, and in the interest, we won't do it together because in the interest of time, some of you might have to get away. When I'm sitting in this meditation, I will always, first of all, I'll try and sit outside in nature. Nature makes meditation a lot easier. Being inside a building is not helpful. And the Buddha always said, bum on the floor under a tree is ideal. You know, if you've got a Bodhi tree like Gautama Siddhartha had hanging around. So bum on the floor if you can. If you can't, if you know, for physical reasons, I'm in a chair right now and that's fine. Sit in that chair. Bum on the floor is helpful with crossed legs. Spine very straight. And I don't know if any of you are taking notes, but it's easy to forget some of this nuance and detail. Spine very straight during the meditation because it helps energy move. And when you start feeling the energy, you'll realize that. Eyes closed because we want to limit the stimuli coming in to the mind. That's the only reason why we do that. There's usually enough going on up here. So we want to limit stuff coming in. So we close the eyes and we want palms open, flat on the knees. You might see people doing the mudras where they bring the index finger and the thumb together. Not important if it's not your gig, but palms up on the knees will make a difference. Head tilted slightly up as though you're trying to get the sun on your face, I always say. And with the eyes closed, what I want you to do is become aware by paying attention to this point here. Okay, this is our starting meditation. And as we sit, we feel the body loose in our posture, in our sitting posture. And we start to breathe into this area here. And we pay attention to it. And maybe we can't feel it yet. Maybe we're paying attention to the absence of sensation. And sometimes it can help before the meditation to put pressure with the thumb here. Just put some pressure here. Let it go, and then bring your awareness to this point. And then all we are doing is when we breathe in, we imagine the air coming through the nostrils into here. And when we breathe out, we imagine the air coming out. We trace it with our mind's eye out through the nostrils and out of the body. There is no more detail to this. This is a practice that can be done by anyone immediately. So our anchor point of attention is here, always, always here. Now thoughts will come and they will take our attention on what's going to be for dinner, or what did Sally say at the office today, and that is fine. Everything is fine. There is no way we can do this wrong. So if we ever thought about the future, thought about the past, the way we start meditation is waiting until we notice a thought has taken our attention. We look at what the thought is, we notice how it made us feel, We maybe even wonder where the thought came from. Did I create that thought? And then we bring our attention back to here. Now, the attention might wander off hundreds of thousands, millions of times. It really isn't important. It's really not important. If it wanders and goes all over the place, and we are looking at thoughts like a stranger in the street, the stranger comes towards you and goes past you. Maybe he lingers and she lingers and looks in a shop window and stays around for a while. It doesn't matter. Maybe they come back again and they forgot something and they're coming back the other way. It doesn't matter at all. We do not reject thoughts. We reject nothing. We accept everything as it is. And we bring our attention back gently and compassionately. You don't say, I'm getting it wrong. You're not getting it wrong, because you cannot get it wrong. By virtue of the fact that we are sitting and keeping the body still as a mountain. Imagine that body is a mountain. It's perfectly still. And we breathe in here and we breathe out here. And we don't need to speed the breathing up or slow the breathing down. The breathing will probably slow of its own accord. The heart rate tends to go down. And we just breathe into this point and we breathe out of that point. And if you can, and again, for anyone taking notes, you might find it helps to roll the eyes back in the skull and to stare at this point. Again, for brevity, I won't get into what happens when we point. The eyes are very powerful in terms of tension. And so you'll find that, going cross-eyed, rolling your eyes back to stare at this point with the eyes closed is very, very, very powerful. And as you sit there, and what I love to do is, I always say this, study the backs of your eyelids. We always talk about having our eyes closed, but when we study, we actually try and look at the backs of our eyelids. We will see colors generally. It won't be still. It might be quite static in nature. And when we study the backs of the eyelids, it cements us in the body. You really realize you're in some sort of biological avatar. So we're then aware that we're in this body, and this part tends to become more salient and pronounced in expression, sensation, and feeling. Eyes roll back, spine very straight, breathing into it and breathing out of it. There's nothing more to that practice. And I wish I had started with that practice, actually. It's just a little bit more powerful than the standard mindfulness of breath, in my experience. Does anyone have a question about that? It's kind of a weird thing to do, isn't it? To sit cross-legged on the grass and roll your eyes back and stare at that point. And anyone who has any questions about this point, Ajna or Ajna, it's A-J-N-A, they call it in the yogic culture. It can change your life, and then you'll be in the shops and it will start activating, and it just gives you this wonderful clarity in this edge of the sediment dropping to the bottom of the glass jar of water. So any questions about just the practice? I'm just aware that we've just reached our 7 o'clock. Hopefully that means, if no one has a question about the practice, hopefully that means it was relatively clear and it can be undertaken by you guys. I was going to do a guided practice, but I feel like just the knowledge of that, and we can do a guided practice on the 15th of May. There's always a lot to get into the first session, because I really like to elucidate and reinforce this idea of we don't think we're the mind, and we don't think we're the body, we're this deeper thing, and how we access that. So I hope that's been super useful for you guys. Have we got any? Yeah, you're welcome, Elizabeth, Jenna, no problem. I hope you guys got something out of it. And if there are no more questions, I'll just finish up by saying, yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys sitting with me throughout this thing. My vocation in life is to try to enhance global consciousness, and I was lucky enough to have a profound conscious deepening experience that some people call an awakening, and it changed my life, and I would love for other people to be able to have that through these teachings, these ancient teachings that are available to everyone, but are so esoteric and hidden in our culture. So I'm trying to dig it out and unmystify it and present it to everybody. So any additional questions and things, mymindfulguru.com, you can contact me there. You'll see a picture of me on the front of the page in front of that waterfall. And yeah, I hopefully will see you guys on the 15th. And don't forget, there's going to be 4 YouTube videos going out. So make sure to like and subscribe on the Vivo Life YouTube channel. I've done 4 intro meditation videos, about 10-15 minutes long each. So there's quite a bit of detail of 4 completely different practices in those. So it's always horses for courses with practices. So if today's practice doesn't work for you, something else will work for you. There are thousands, absolutely thousands of methods of deepening one's consciousness. Many ways to string a cat, as they say. So yeah, thank you, everyone. And if I don't know if Josh has anything to say to wrap it up, or maybe he left. Maybe he maybe there's something more interesting going on in Glastonbury.
No. What could be more interesting? No, I'm not even going to attempt to add anything to that. All I will say is thank you, Christian, and thank you everyone for being here and for your attention. It is a valuable commodity these days, and there was a reason we didn't do this via Instagram Live or anywhere else that there's 1,000,001 other distractions. It means a lot that you've carved this time out your day to be here. So thank you. There will be a lot more information to come, and it feels a bit interesting, doesn't it? Giving information on something that shouldn't require information, but here we are, and this information really does help. I know how much it's helped me. So keep your eyes on your email inbox. There's going to be a lot more good stuff coming. Our YouTube channel is going to be popping over the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of great stuff from Christian on there, and we will see you again on the 15th for the next live. So yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. You take care. Namaste. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.